Imagine waking up one morning and everything you need to buy costs a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
That's the reality for a lot of Malaysians.
Yeah.
As their currency, the ringgit, has plunged to a 26-year low against the U.S. dollar.
I can't believe it's been that long since 98.
It's a financial mystery with real-world consequences. And today, we're going to deep dive into the factors that are driving this slump.
It's going to be an interesting.
We've got some really great sources lined up for this deep dive.
Oh, cool.
Including reports from AP News and the Straits Times.
Okay.
And even a fascinating YouTube video from CNA Insider.
Oh, wow. So
this is going to be good.
It should be really fascinating.
Yeah.
But to your point, it's not just about the numbers on a screen, right?
Right.
A weaker ringgit means imported goods get pricier.
Yeah.
Everything from the food on your table to the clothes you wear.
Everything.
And for a country like Malaysia that relies heavily on imports, this can have a ripple effect across the entire economy.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not just some abstract economic concept, right?
It's not.
We're talking about real people feeling the pinch.
Absolutely.
People having to change their lives to accommodate this.
Yeah.
One of the CNA Insider reports features a Malaysian container driver who now commutes to Singapore for work.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
That's wild.
He says the exchange rate makes the wages in Singapore so much more attractive.
Right.
That it's worth the hassle of working abroad.
I guess so, yeah, if you're making that much more.
So, I mean, that's a pretty drastic step to take.
For sure.
Just to make ends meet.
Yeah.
So it really highlights the impact that this is having on everyday Malaysians.
Yeah, and it's not just individuals who are feeling the pressure, right?
Yeah.
Businesses are also getting squeezed.
Oh, well, for sure.
The CNA Insider video also shows a clothing manufacturer grappling with the rising cost of imported fabrics.
Right.
His materials are more expensive with a weaker ringgit, and that puts him in a tough spot. Either absorb the higher costs and see his profits shrink, or raise prices and risk losing customers.
And I'm sure there's not an easy answer there.
Not at all.
No.
Right.
Tough choices.
It's a real dilemma, and I imagine a lot of businesses in Malaysia are facing similar challenges right now.
Oh, I'm sure.
So let's get to the bottom of this.
Okay.
Why is the ringgit taking such a nosedive?
Well, one of the big culprits is the strong U.S. dollar.
Okay.
Think of it like this. The U.S. Federal Reserve, their central bank, has been raising interest rates aggressively to fight inflation.
Cool.
This is like turning up the gravity in the U.S. financial market.
Okay.
Investors are drawn to the higher returns they can get on U.S. dollar investments.
Right.
So money is flowing in from all over the world.
So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
The stronger the dollar gets, the more attractive it becomes to investors.
Right.
Which pushes it even higher.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it.
And so how does that affect Malaysia?
Well, Bank Negara Malaysia, their central bank, has also been raising interest rates. They've been moving much more cautiously.
Okay.
This creates a gap between the two currencies, making the U.S. dollar a more attractive bet for investors.
So it's like a race where one runner is sprinting ahead.
Yes.
And the other is holding back.
Exactly.
But it's not just about the U.S. dollar, is it?
No, there are other factors at play here, too.
Okay, like what?
Well, for example, China's economic slowdown is a big concern for Malaysia.
Okay.
They're major trading partners. And when China sneezes, Malaysia catches a cold.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder of how interconnected the global economy really is.
Absolutely.
Problems in one part of the world can very quickly ripple outward.
The butterfly effect.
It's scary in a way.
Yeah, it is.
So we've got this external pressure from the U.S. dollar. We've got this external pressure from the Chinese economy.
Yep.
You've also got some internal challenges within Malaysia itself, right?
Right.
While the government has plans for economic reforms, the pace of implementation has been slow.
That's right.
So it's like waiting for a bus that's always running late.
I hate this.
Eventually, people start to lose faith and look for other options.
Right, and that's exactly what's happening in the financial markets.
Okay.
This uncertainty makes investors hesitant to put their money into Malaysia.
Right, yeah.
Which further weakens the ringgit.
Oh, wow.
It's a bit of a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got this perfect storm brewing.
Yeah.
A strong U.S. dollar, a slowing Chinese economy, and some internal uncertainties within Malaysia.
It's a lot.
It's no wonder the ringgit is struggling.
Yeah.
But the big question is, what can be done about it?
Right.
Surely the Malaysian government isn't just sitting back and watching this happen.
Well, they're certainly not idle.
Okay.
Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim recently announced plans to revamp some of the country's subsidies,
Okay.
particularly those for gasoline, education, and healthcare.
Wait, so are they cutting back on subsidies entirely?
Not exactly. It's more about targeting them more effectively.
Oh.
Instead of blanket subsidies that benefit everyone, they're looking at ways to focus on the people who need them most.
Okay.
It's a tough balancing act because subsidies are popular with the public,
Oh, yeah?
but they can also be a huge drain on government finances.
Right. It's about finding that sweet spot
Yeah.
between providing support
Right.
and ensuring that you're not spending money you don't have.
Exactly.
But even with targeted subsidies, it sounds like the government is still going to need more revenue to address the situation.
You're right, and that's why they're also considering new taxes.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, I know, right?
Nobody likes taxes.
On things like sweet drinks and shared dividends.
Okay.
Taxes are never popular.
No.
But they might be necessary
Yeah.
to avoid an even worse scenario down the line, like runaway inflation or a ballooning deficit.
I see.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're trying to pull multiple levers to stabilize the situation.
Oh, they are, and here's another interesting strategy. They're considering encouraging government-linked companies to bring their foreign earnings back to Malaysia.
Interesting.
This is what economists call repatriation of funds.
Oh, yeah.
The idea is that by bringing this money back home, it will increase demand for the ringgit,
Right.
potentially giving it a boost.
But if more people need to buy ringgit to invest in Malaysia,
Yeah,
that should drive up the value.
exactly.
Okay.
So they're trying to do a lot of things.
Yeah, it sounds very complex.
It is.
But while the situation is definitely serious, some experts argue that this isn't another Asian financial crisis in the making.
Oh, good.
Right.
That's good to hear.
That's a relief to hear, especially for those who remember the turmoil of 1998.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't want to go back to that.
No, nobody wants that.
But why do they think that it's not going to be another crisis?
Well, the argument is that Malaysia's economic fundamentals are much stronger today than they were back then. The banking system is healthier, foreign reserves are larger, and the economy, while facing some headwinds, is still growing.
Okay, so there are some bright spots.
There are.
But even with these reassurances, there's no denying that the rising cost of living is a major concern,
Yeah.
especially for the most vulnerable segments of society.
Absolutely. It's a harsh reality.
It is. It
Yeah.
makes you wonder if this is just a temporary blip
Yeah.
or a sign of something more systemic.
That's a great question, and one we should definitely explore further.
Okay, let's dig deeper into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
This financial roller coaster is far from over.
Buckle up.
So we've laid out the challenges facing the Malaysian ringgit. But I'm curious, is this just a Malaysian problem, or is it a symptom of something bigger happening in the global economy?
That's where it gets really fascinating.
Okay.
The ringgit's struggles actually point to some broader shifts happening on the global stage, particularly for economies like Malaysia's that rely heavily on exports.
Okay, help me understand this. Malaysia has built its success on producing and exporting goods to the world, especially electronics and commodities like palm oil. What's changing now?
Well, for one, the competition is heating up. Other emerging economies are upping their game, vying for the same slice of the global market.
Yep.
On top of that, automation is changing the manufacturing landscape, potentially shrinking a demand for traditional labor-intensive industries.
So on one hand, they're facing more competition, and on the other, the very nature of manufacturing is evolving, potentially impacting jobs and growth.
Precisely. And let's not forget the rising interest rates we talked about earlier. These higher rates make it more expensive for developing countries to borrow money and finance their growth. This can create a vicious cycle where slower growth further weakens their currencies, making it even harder to attract investment.
It's like they're swimming against a strong current.
Yeah.
Is there any way to break free from this cycle?
That's the million-dollar question. Some experts believe Malaysia needs to move up the value chain. Instead of focusing on low-cost manufacturing, they need to shift towards higher tech industries and specialized services that command higher prices and are less susceptible to automation.
So less about churning out cheap goods and more about innovation and expertise. But that's a big shift.
It is. It would require significant investments in education and skills development, creating a workforce that's equipped to compete in these high-value sectors.
It's a long-term game, but if they succeed, it could pay off big time. Is there anything else they could do to create a more resilient economy?
Another crucial strategy is diversification. Malaysia can't afford to be so heavily reliant on just a few export markets, especially with China's economy experiencing a slowdown. They need to expand their trading partners and find new markets for the products and services.
So spreading the risk, not putting all their eggs in one basket, that seems like a no-brainer.
You'd think so, but it's not always easy. It requires building relationships, understanding different markets, and adapting products and services to meet local needs.
It's a complex undertaking, but essential for long-term stability. But while they're working on these long-term strategies, they still have to deal with the immediate challenges facing their people. The rising cost of living is a huge concern, and we talked about how the government is walking a tightrope between providing support and maintaining fiscal discipline.
Exactly. It's a delicate balancing act. And that's where those targeted subsidies, while politically challenging to implement, could play a crucial role. It's about ensuring that assistance reaches those who truly need it without straining government finances.
It sounds like a data-driven challenge as much as an economic one.
Absolutely. Having accurate data on household incomes and spending patterns is essential for designing effective and equitable support programs. And then there's the communication challenge, explaining to the public why certain changes are necessary, and building trust in the government's economic stewardship is key.
Transparency and clear communication are so important, especially when people are feeling anxious about their financial security. So Malaysia is facing a multi-dimensional challenge, navigating global economic headwinds, implementing structural reforms, addressing immediate cost of living pressures, and maintaining public confidence.
It is indeed a lot to juggle. But there's one more dimension we haven't discussed yet, and it's a big one, the political dimension.
Right, we touched on how the weak ringgit has become a political football. But how could this impact Malaysia's political landscape and the government's ability to act?
Well, as economic pressures mount, there's always the risk of social unrest. We've seen this happen in other countries facing similar challenges. If people feel like the government isn't listening to their concerns or addressing their needs, they might take to the streets to voice their frustrations.
It's a stark reminder that economic hardship can quickly escalate into political instability. And wouldn't that make things even more difficult for the government?
Absolutely. Political instability can create distractions, slow down decision-making, and make it even harder to implement those necessary reforms.
And then there's the issue of political polarization. You mentioned how the opposition is using the weak ringgit to attack the government's competence.
Exactly. And that kind of rhetoric can further divide the country at a time when unity and cooperation are crucial for overcoming these challenges, like trying to solve a complex puzzle while everyone is arguing about which pieces belong where.
It's a recipe for gridlock and inaction. And the longer these problems fester, the harder they become to solve.
And we can't forget about the impact on public trust. If people lose faith in the government's ability to manage the economy effectively, they're less likely to make sacrifices or support tough but necessary decisions.
This is a delicate balancing act. Economic reforms, political maneuvering, and public sentiment all intertwined.
Precisely. And I think this highlights one of the most fascinating things about economics. It's not just about numbers and graphs. It's about people, their choices, their beliefs, and how all of these factors interact to shape the course of events.
So what can we glean from Malaysia's ringgit roller coaster ride? Is there a broader lesson here for other countries, especially those that are reliant on exports?
There are definitely some valuable takeaways here. First and foremost, I think it underscores the importance of diversification. Over-reliance on a single industry or a few export markets can be a double-edged sword. It can fuel rapid growth during good times, but it also leaves countries vulnerable to external shocks and shifts in the global economic landscape.
So building a more balanced and resilient economy is key, one that's not so dependent on the whims of global markets.
Right. And the second lesson is the importance of continuous adaptation and reform. Countries can't afford to rest on their laurels, even when things are going well. They need to constantly invest in education, innovation, and infrastructure to stay ahead of the curve. The global economy is constantly evolving, and those who fail to adapt risk being left behind.
It's a constant process of evolution, not a one-time fix.
Exactly. And finally, I think Malaysia's experience highlights the critical role of effective governance and political stability. Without public trust, clear communication, and a willingness to make tough decisions, even the best economic plans can falter.
It's a reminder that economics and politics are deeply intertwined. You can't have a truly healthy economy without a stable and well-functioning political system. But let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about the challenges and the lessons, but are there any bright spots in this story? Are there opportunities emerging from this crisis?
That's a great question, and one we'll explore as we continue our deep dive into the Malaysian ringgit roller coaster.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges and the lessons learned from Malaysia's economic situation. But amidst all of this, are there any glimmers of hope? What opportunities might emerge from this crisis?
That's a great question, and the answer is a resounding yes.
Okay.
Even in the face of adversity, there are always opportunities for those who are willing to look for them and adapt to changing circumstances.
So tell me, where do you see the biggest potential for Malaysia to not only recover, but thrive in this new global landscape?
Well, one area where Malaysia has a real advantage is the halal food industry. They've been a major player in this market for years, and it's a sector that's experiencing rapid growth globally.
Right, I've heard about this.
Yeah.
But how big is the halal food market really? And can it make a significant difference for Malaysia's economy?
It's huge, and it's only getting bigger.
Hmm.
We're talking about a global market that's projected to reach trillions of dollars in the coming years. And Malaysia is well positioned to capitalize on this growth. They've got the expertise, the infrastructure, and a strong reputation for quality and authenticity in halal food production.
So it's about doubling down on what they already do well and tapping into a global market with enormous potential. I like it. What else? Are there any other sectors where Malaysia could really shine?
Absolutely. Another area where Malaysia has a real edge is Islamic finance. They're a global leader in this field with a robust regulatory framework and a proven track record.
Okay, I've heard of Islamic finance, but to be honest, I don't really understand how it works. Can you break it down for me and explain why it's such a big opportunity for Malaysia?
Sure, Islamic finance is a financial system that operates in accordance with Islamic principles, which prohibit things like interest and excessive speculation. It's about ethical and sustainable investing, and it's gaining traction worldwide as more and more people seek out financial products that align with their values.
So it's like socially responsible investing, but with a specific focus on Islamic principles.
Exactly. And Malaysia is at the forefront of this movement. They have a well-developed Islamic banking sector and a growing ecosystem of Islamic fintech companies. As the global demand for ethical and sustainable financial products continues to rise, Malaysia could become a major hub for Islamic finance, attracting investment and creating jobs.
That's fascinating. It seems like they're holding a winning hand in a game that's only getting bigger. Are there any other areas you see as potential game changers for Malaysia?
Definitely. Let's not forget about the digital revolution that's transforming the world. Malaysia has a young and tech-savvy population, and the government has been investing heavily in digital infrastructure. This could create fertile ground for startups and innovative companies driving growth in new and exciting sectors.
So moving beyond traditional industries and embracing the digital economy, but can Malaysia really compete with the tech giants of the world like Silicon Valley or Shenzhen?
They don't necessarily have to compete head-on. Malaysia can carve out its own niche by focusing on areas where it has a competitive advantage. For example, they could become a regional hub for e-commerce, fintech, or even artificial intelligence, attracting talent and investment from across Southeast Asia.
So it's about finding those sweet spots, those areas where they can leverage their unique strengths to create a thriving digital economy. It sounds promising, but it also requires a shift in mindset, right?
You're absolutely right. It requires embracing innovation, taking risks, and fostering a culture of entrepreneurship. And that's where the government can play a crucial role by creating a supportive environment for startups and businesses, providing access to funding and streamlining regulations.
It sounds like there's a real opportunity for Malaysia to become a digital powerhouse in the region. But let's not overlook the things that have always made Malaysia special: its natural beauty and rich cultural heritage.
You're right. Tourism has always been a significant contributor to Malaysia's economy. And as the world emerges from the pandemic, there's a pent-up demand for travel and new experiences.
It's funny how sometimes a country's greatest assets are the things that can't be manufactured or traded on a stock exchange.
So true. And I think there's a real opportunity for Malaysia to reimagine its tourism industry. Instead of just focusing on the traditional sun and sand offerings, they can develop more immersive and sustainable tourism experiences that showcase their unique cultural and natural treasures.
Experiences that go beyond just ticking off tourist attractions and create a deeper connection with the place and its people.
Exactly. Imagine eco-tours that explore Malaysia's incredible biodiversity, culinary adventures that showcase its diverse cuisine, or cultural exchanges that immerse visitors in the traditions and heritage of its various ethnic groups.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But I imagine developing these kinds of experiences requires careful planning and a long-term vision.
It does, and it requires collaboration between the government, the private sector, and local communities. It's about creating sustainable tourism that benefits everyone, protects the environment, and preserves Malaysia's cultural heritage for future generations.
So it seems like Malaysia has a lot going for it, even amidst these economic challenges. They've got opportunities in halal food, Islamic finance, the digital economy, and sustainable tourism. But realizing these opportunities won't be easy, right?
You're right. It requires bold leadership, smart policies, and a willingness to adapt and embrace change. But most importantly, it requires the people of Malaysia to believe in themselves and their ability to shape their own destiny.
It's about harnessing the collective ingenuity and entrepreneurial spirit of the Malaysian people to create a more prosperous and sustainable future.
Exactly. And that's what makes this story so compelling. It's not just about numbers and graphs. It's about the human spirit, the resilience of a nation, and the potential for positive change, even in the face of adversity.
So to our listeners, as we wrap up this deep dive into the Malaysian Ringgit roller coaster, we leave you with this thought. What lessons can you draw from Malaysia's experience? What opportunities do you see emerging from the challenges we face in our own lives and communities? Remember, even amidst the turbulence, there's always the possibility of a brighter future if we're willing to embrace change, think creatively, and work together toward the common goal.
Well said. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the fascinating world around us.